Hey, well, hi everyone, and thank you very much for watching or listening. Liam Hartree back with you today with another episode of Presenting Champions. And today I'm joined by a very special guest, Robert the Pitbull Massalene, an MMA fighter, professional MMA fighter, fighting out of the USA, former sergeant in the US Marines as well. Now, this man today has a very inspiring story today. Obviously, we'll be talking about MMA, but we'll be going deeper into the sporting side of things and into the mindset that it takes to compete in one of the toughest sports in the world, and the mindset that it takes to be disciplined and achieve your dreams in any area of life, be it business, education. Even though we're talking about MMA today, there's some lessons that you can apply to any life area, some hope, some inspiration, some motivation. So stay tuned, everyone. And champ, good morning, and thank you so much for coming on the show. It's great to finally meet you. Thank you.
Definitely. Good morning. Good morning.
Absolutely, yeah, absolute pleasure. Because I know we've been talking on and off for quite a while, so it's great to finally be here. So I'm going to actually go back in time with you for a moment. I don't always start at the beginning with all of my guests, but I will with you to go back to where you're from originally and a little bit about what your upbringing was like, please. Let's start there. Thank you.
So I'm originally from Panama City, Florida. It's the northern panhandle area of Florida, basically what I would call the true South. Um, yeah, born and raised there. Yeah, moved around a little bit. My family was military, but for the most part, spent most of my lifetime in Panama City up until I left around the age of 18 to go into the military. But during my time in Panama City, growing up there was pretty much if you've seen some of the deep South Southern movies, that was kind of Panama City, the city itself. But also, I grew up in a time where when the spring break culture was really big, we had Panama City Beach, you had Beach MTV, MTV Jams, the whole MTV spring break culture. I grew up around all of that. So I kind of had a mix of Southern hospitality and then this whole beach vibe of spring break and the party scene. So I kind of got that good mix of everything while I was young. Kind of got it out my system, got a chance to kind of see where I wanted to be at. Um, During my middle school and high school time frame, I actually was a wrestler. I wrestled from um, the end of my middle school all the way through my whole high school career. That accumulated into, and I think I just found my record. I had over 200 and something matches over that whole time frame. So I think overall I might have had a total of 30 losses, which is, when you really look at it, it's not bad for a wrestling career where you're wrestling all the time. So, so that kind of like that kickstarted my sports side of things. As far as the dedication side of things, I think I've always just been that kind of person where I worked hard, trained hard, I did everything to, I won't say perfection, but I definitely put a lot into it. So, um, definitely come from a large family. My last name is pretty well known around the Florida area, especially that area where I'm from, because my family actually settled that area from um from the European side, because the original person, founding person for my family was a Spanish merchant marine. So um that just kind of grew our whole family, which made us like, now when you see the last names, you can you pretty much know that everybody is family. Everybody is some way, shape, or form related. It doesn't matter how the last name's spelled. Excuse me. Um, we're we're family. I've met family over the past few years that I've never met in my life, especially living where I am now in Orlando. Um, I've kind of ventured out like over the years, just kind of try to see how much family I can meet, and kind of grow that family tree and kind of connect with everybody. So for me, family is a big thing. Family and having people close to you, those are normally your big support systems. So
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, family is the biggest blessing that we have in life. I always say, obviously health as well, but beyond that, family is what you've got. So that's a wonderful thing, wonderful description. Thank you. Um,
yeah,
touch on a couple of things there as well. Now, you mentioned about the wrestling and all of those matches that you had, and it's a very intensive regime. I think it would be good to get one or two highlights, or what you regard to maybe be one or two highlights. There might be too many to count with this, but if maybe there's a couple of matches, two or three matches that really stand out to you, and you look back proudly on that. Like I said earlier, the process is the biggest thing, the journey itself, and we'll get to that. But I just wondered if there's any that stand out to you when you look back on it now above the others in any way.
honestly, like one of the ones that stand out to me after all these years. I mean, and you got to remember this is back in the late '90s. Um, was my first time going to a not even a tournament. It was actually the district um champion or the district playoffs, you would say district matches. There we go. Um, I went through and I always knew I was a stronger guy, even though I was shorter and everything else. And I kind of depended on that from my early career up until that first year of high school wrestling. And so I got in that match and I was just like overwhelmed by a guy that was I was at 135 my whole career. And so I meet this kid and I can picture this guy now. He was 135, but he was just jacked. And I tried to muscle more than technique and got destroyed. And I was just like, man, I was like, what did I do wrong? And so that match itself just kind of stuck with me. So the rest of my career, I started to really, really hone in on my technique and focus on being better at the technique, not the strength side. And honestly, my first year that I actually won or placed in the district, then placed in the regions, I was like, man, I was like, I can go far. So, though that one match right there changed a lot for me. Um, but unfortunately, the problem with all that was, being young, you're still your mindset isn't 100% there. You make it far, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good, and you start getting a little bit too cocky, and so you kind of get brought back down to earth. Um, I wound up making it all the way to state my senior year, and got to state, and just was like, mm, I'm here, I made it, and didn't take the rest of it seriously. I look back on it, I regret it, but at the same time, I'm glad I did it that way because it brought me down to earth to realize, hey, you know what? If you want something, you have to work hard for it.
Absolutely. Well, again, like I was saying earlier, it's a valuable life lesson because, yeah, you reach that high level, but you have to keep doing what you did to get there, and oftentimes more to stay there. And it's something that people don't realize that when you get to those sorts of levels, even staying in the same place takes work. Never mind progressing up the level. So it's again good life lesson for anyone doing anything. Don't get complacent, but appreciate the honesty, and this is what it's all about, the things you've learned along the way. Obviously with the military side of things, you mentioned that was in your family. So was that always your goal, always your expectation to go into the military, or was it something you considered a little bit first?
Um, Honestly, I ran away from the military recruiters. Like they would come to the school and I would hide. I would um they would try to recruit me. I'm like, nah, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good. Every time I see them sitting in the lunchroom or walking down the hall, I'd walk the whole opposite way. I'd walk the long way around. I'd be late for class just to make sure I missed them. So it wasn't really a, oh man, I want to do this, I want to do this. It was more of a, for me, it was more of like an awakening. I woke up one day after partying and was like, I got to make a change. And I literally got up out of bed, borrowed my roommate's truck, went over to the recruiting office. Um, and basically, when I walked into this recruiting office, it was in front of me was the Marine Corps. It was just one door. Walked into the one door. There was an office right in front of me in this little hallway, which was the Marines, and one to the right of me, which was the Air Force. I happened to know a couple of the guys because my roommate was a reservist at the time. And but I didn't still was like, oh, I'm not gonna walk in there yet. So I started looking at these brochures that are on this little thing here. The Air Force one. I'm like, oh, this and another. Out comes one of the recruiters that I knew. He's like, hey, what you doing over here? I was like, well, I'm gonna join the military. I want to get out of here ASAP. He was like, come on in. Walked in within 30 minutes. I was getting everything set up to go take my ASFAB, which is the test in order to get into the military. Um, and I'd kind of already made my mind up that I was ready to leave. And I told them, I wanted to leave. I was ready to leave like that next day. Um, and just to actually kind of backtrack a little bit to what brought me to that point was I'd also found out um, not too long before that my girlfriend at the time was pregnant with my son. Um, so it was like a big awakening for me, knowing that I needed to do something. Whether or not I was gonna be with her or whatever else, I needed to do something to better myself because I was doing a lot of things that if I would have stayed on that path would have been very detrimental to my future. And so, fast forward, I take the ASFAB, I score high, and this happened in, see, August, August time frame, July, August time frame. Um, by December, I was on a bus headed to Paris Island to join the Marine Corps. So it was a very quick turnaround. Um, and that kind of just began that career. And it was, it was a very, I wasn't afraid. I think one of the good things that I know about myself is that I can look at a situation and kind of weigh it out. And knowing people that were already in and things like that, I was more curious than afraid. So getting there, man, I tell you, when you talk to a Marine and they tell you that they can't really explain to you the feeling that they felt and make you understand that feeling, it is very hard because it's so many rushes of emotion. Like you're sleep deprived, you've got somebody yelling at you, you're in this place where there's no way basically out because you're going into somewhere. It's dark when you first get there, you're disoriented, you're constantly moving for the first 48, 72 hours. And so it is a sensory overload. And that, that right there in itself was like, hey, here it is, real life, starting up with a new part of my life. Um, and for me, it was that was that big jump, and there was no looking back from there.
Absolutely amazing. Well, I love the story of the motivation to go in there, changing your peer group, changing your lifestyle, doing the right things for your girlfriend at the time to provide and make the changes. I love that. Now, something that's interesting to touch on here with the mindset side of things is obviously you mentioned there about not being afraid and being curious. And in your life, you've measured up to these different challenges that have faced you. Do you think that mental toughness that you have is something that you were born with, or do you think it's something that's cultivated? Now, I know you did say about originally avoiding, wanting to join the army and things like that, but still, I don't think that's a mental weakness. I mean, that might mean that that potential was inside of you, it just had to be brought out some more, or it might mean it's something you actually drilled into yourself, or a combination of both. But basically, the strength that you possess here, just as much as anywhere here, where does that come from for you personally, do you think?
Honestly, I think a lot of it comes from, number one, I've always been the smaller person. Always been short. Growing up, I was the small kid. I did get picked on. That was me. I was a small kid. I was the new kid a few times, and being the small and new kid, you get bullied. And so I became tough. I think based off of that, going through some adversity as a kid, that definitely kind of built that toughness and ingrained that in me. Um, you know, Being independent also was one of those things that just built onto that. And as that independence grew, that strength grew, and that tenacity to want to achieve things and be, you know, the best I could be at all these things, just grew inside of me. So I think that's where that fearlessness would come from.
Absolutely, yeah. It makes a lot of sense, and it shows other people how they can take negative situations and use those to their advantage, use that to build that inner strength. And I like that. I like that because, and also, people see the success that you're having now, or that you've had in your life, and you're continuing to have with MMA, and they see it at this point, but they don't always see where it started from. That you had to go through these things, you had to be bullied, you had to lose wrestling matches. You had to be sort of face these daunting tasks, and they now they realize what you went through, and so when they're going through it, it doesn't feel maybe so strange to them that they're going through it as well. So with the military, obviously, I'd like to just go into the a little bit more into the tests that they put you through. You mentioned that sensory overload, and I mean, you see, like I've seen videos on this stuff. I've spoken to a few guys who've been through this, but it is different to like the military, say in the UK where I'm from or other places. They put people through different tests. So especially for our audience who's watching this anywhere in Europe, I think a lot of Americans will know, but for anyone who doesn't know in other places, can you go a little bit deeper into like some of the trials they put you through in the beginning and how it works and also how you got through it? I mean, how you use that toughness to succeed at that because not everybody does. I mean, as I understand it, people drop out at that stage, but you can clarify that for us, please. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So there, there's a lot of physical activity. There's a lot of mental breakdown that happens, in Marine Corps boot camp, especially. Obviously, the Marines are the pinnacle of the armed forces, and so when they're building Marines, they are literally throwing everything they can at you. And you have certain points that you have to pass. You have a PT test. You have that. I think there was like three or four of those. I can't even remember how many. But you're always running. You're always doing something physical. You don't ride anywhere. You walk, march everywhere. Rain, snow. It doesn't matter what it is. You're in the elements. And you're going from point A to point B. Classes. 4 o'clock in the morning. You're sitting in somewhere tired as I don't know what, haven't eaten, and just getting you're getting taught how to do CPR, you're getting taught how to dress battle wounds, you're getting taught how to evac injured, you know, all these things. They have points though that you have to pass. Testing for both mental testing and physical testing. Um, one of the big ones is swim qual. Man, I tell you, I've never been in a place where I saw so many people that were afraid of water. And when I went into boot camp, I wasn't a strong swimmer. Obviously I grew up on the water because I grew up at the beach, but I wasn't a strong swimmer. So the first go around, had to go, I went through and I didn't complete all of the tasks that needed to be completed for swim qual. So I got put into a remedial. And, me being the kind of person I am, I'm like, oh, you know what, shit, I am not gonna fail this. I will get past this. If they have to drag me from the bottom of the freaking pool, I'm gonna pass this. So, um, and the problem was, it was like, well, it wasn't the problem. The thing was, in order for you to get to the next evolution of the swim coughing, you had to swim, I think it was 100 meters, something like that, across the pool. And so once you did that, then you go to a portion where you jump off of the tower, which was about 14 feet up, and then it's about, I think it's like 10 feet of water. So you're doing about 24 feet total. And so my whole thing was like, man, look, if I just get past this swim part, I'm all game for jumping off this tower, because that to me was just like the pinnacle of fun right there. So, push, 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 for 2 days, at it, day in, day out, run PT, go to the classes, then go over to the remedial swim, back and forth, back and forth. Day three, they're like, okay, y'all testing again. Test, run through it, no problem. Bam. Get to the next part. Hey, we're about to jump off of this tower. No problem. Bam. Then the next part, you have to tread water. The craziest thing in the world, you never realize how much your body can do until your body is pushed to that limit. And so things like that, having to push, push, push to those limits, are what broke my mind from being like, I can't, to there's nothing I can't do. And so got through that swim call, no problem whatsoever. I was like, all right, cool. Joined back up to my platoon and went on to the next phases of things. We had rifle qual, um we had our obstacle courses, all sorts of like just mental and physically challenging things that would, probably break most people down. Most people would give up on half of the stuff that we went through. And, nowadays, the military boot camps all the way across are a lot softer than what they were back then, because they had a lot of leeway. It's different whenever you're out of sight, out of mind. So, um, but it was just like going through each evolution of that, I think just made me even tougher as far as my mindset went. It was like things that you would never think you could do. There's this rope thing that's over this whole thing of water. I mean, it's a big drop, and you have to go down this thing a certain way. Rappelling up the side of a building, um, rifle quals, um, military movements, as far as like, little war games, things like that. I mean, there was a lot going on, and you know, until this day, I couldn't recall half of the stuff that went on during that time, but I know that I went through a lot. Um, I saw a lot of people drop out. I stood beside people that pretty much just went crazy, and you're just like, man, yo, I'm glad that's not me. And it was just like, you know, you see people fail, and I think that is the biggest fear, is failing and getting sent home at that point. Because once you're there, you start building this camaraderie and this family, and so you don't want to fail. And as much of it is a team effort, it's also an individual effort. And so breaking yourself and that breakdown is part of the things that kind of like built me up to who I am.
Absolutely. It's an amazing insight into that, and especially what you were saying there about the limits and realizing that those limits actually don't exist, basically. I mean, it's an amazing thing, and no such thing as I can, and this type of thing. It's incredible insight into that. So obviously this was successful for you. You progressed through the military career all the way to sergeant, I believe, and you went through the ranks. So how long were you actually involved in the Marines all in all? How many years did you serve?
Let's see, I went in 1998 and I got out in 2010, so just about 12 years. So you know, I think I went through a lot of different things. And, I um, worked quite a few places, got a chance to see quite a few places. Um, I did be working doing brig duty and MP duty, things like that. I didn't get a chance to experience a lot of the um, deployment aspect of things, but I did a lot. There's a lot of homegrown things that I had to deal with, and the stresses of those right there were pretty detrimental, and it sucks to see some of the things that I saw. Um, Marines that have taken their lives, military members that have taken their lives, military members that are killed in accidents. Just they were, having to go through the stresses of um, quick decisions, quick actions. That could actually cost somebody else their life. Having somebody else's life in your hands. There was a lot of those things that I went through that were um, that definitely opened my eyes to a lot of things, and also I got a chance to see some of the evils of the world. And, a lot of people don't understand, but the evils that we see outside, like in what I call civilian life, happen on the military side as well. And, anywhere from having to deal with child molesters to rapists to, you know, killers, just everything. And I mean, you're talking military members that are these people. So it definitely took a toll. There's some things that I saw that I don't really talk too much about. Outside of my therapy sessions um with my VA reps. But there are things that definitely you know changed my way of thinking about certain things. And you know those things tested that mental toughness. Those things tested my mental resolve to things. Um, it it definitely shaped the way that I deal with people. And so you know I've had to build from that, and here I am. It definitely, once again, that's just one of those things that kind of added to the person that I am today. So
Yeah, well, it's one of the things that made you the person you are today, but at the same time, I appreciate you mentioning that, to be quite honest with you. Again, because everything I talk about in these interviews is always framed to help people, and it's always framed. So obviously, a lot of veterans will relate to this. I've had this conversation with a number of veterans with the US and the UK military, respectively, and it's a process that people go through, and it's one of the most difficult things I've ever heard. When people, it depends how much they go into it. Some people go into it more than others, and
right.
obviously here. There's no pressure to go into anything like that. But at the same time, I'm glad that you have mentioned it because it shows that mental toughness comes into it. And the thing is, obviously, we're talking about the mental toughness and the discipline and the Marines and the fact you're a warrior person. But the thing is, if you don't mind me saying this, I also think that you have that compassionate side and that sort of um, gentler side to you, basically, and underneath that, and I mean that as a compliment. So I can understand when you see or when you experience um, things that go beyond, somebody making a mistake, and like you said, there they go into actual like evil, where somebody knows something's wrong and they do it anyway. And I've seen that as well in a different perspective. And obviously, a lot of people, like, I mean, I have friends who've been obviously in jail and things like that, but they've just made mistakes. They're sort of misguided and a bit lost or whatever. But when it comes to like somebody knows something's wrong and they do it anyway, and you see that person, you look them in the eye, and you don't see what I would regard as a person with all the attributes of a human being, as weird as that may sound looking back at you. It does take some. It does take some putting in its place in your mind. It does take some like thinking, how do I understand that? But anyway, that's a topic for another day. I totally get where you're coming from. One of the things I would like to touch on with that, not so much anything you experience, nothing like that, but just for the purposes of people who are going through trauma, which is a very broad term I'm going to use for this. In terms of facing that and working through that process, you mentioned therapy there. You mentioned some steps that you're taking to deal with that. Broadly speaking, without getting into anything too personal about it, could you share maybe some advice for people who are going through that? Because I think it applies to people, obviously in civilian life, they have trauma, military life, they have trauma. It's different, it takes different forms, but people go through trauma and people go through things where they think, okay, is my life ever going to be the same? Could you share maybe some advice for those people from your perspective, please?
Yeah, I mean, I can honestly say though, like for me, a lot of my traumas and things like that accumulated into or spilled over into my relationship. Um I've been married. I'm on my third marriage now. My first two marriages, my first marriage was like, I was still in the military, but I was young. So that one wasn't like that one really didn't get affected as much by my traumas, but my second marriage, there was a lot of things like that triggered like just so many things that I went through, and then it was like, I got down, I became dependent, I guess, more on the person. And even though it was kind of toxic, um, it didn't build me, it broke me. And I honestly got so broken to the point to where I almost became a statistic. And that right there was an awakening. Um, and because of that awakening, I knew that I had to find a better outlet. I needed to speak to somebody. I needed to, you know, dig deep and be like, you know what? Just because you're military and just because you've been through all these things doesn't mean that you can do it by yourself. Um, and so I had to really swallow my pride and be like, you know what? I'm gonna talk to someone. Um, it helped that I had friends that were military that I could talk to. And so that kind of started broadening my horizons to open up to speaking to a therapist because for a long time, I was like, I'm tough, I'm strong, I ain't got to talk to anybody. Talk to a therapist not, is not my way type thing, Nope, I don't want to share any of my stuff with anybody. Um, but after a while, like seeing, well, not even seeing, getting phone calls that people that I looked up to had committed suicide, that were, you know, people that I looked up to in the military and things like that, man, it really hit home. And that I think that right there in itself started snap something in me where I was like, you know what, I have to be stronger because I need to be able to be there for people that can't be there for themselves. And so I started seeking a way to better myself, to be a better help to those that couldn't help themselves or that felt there was no help for them. So that is what built me to where I am now. And honestly, it's as much as people ask me about a lot of the things I do, that's probably my number one why, is because there's so many of us military members broken, and we feel that there is nothing left. And you know, if my journey touches one and shows them that regardless of what disability, what setback, anything that you have, you can still achieve whatever you want to do through that toughness that you have built up in you. You just have to push and you have to be willing to accept the ups and downs. So, that's one of the big reasons why I do what I do.
Absolutely. Well, it's something that it's why I do these interviews as well, by the way, is actually to touch people's lives and things. It's not really to talk about like the fights or the sports or this and that. It's always when we get into this type of stuff, that's what kept me going. Of, you get the messages saying, "Oh, Liam, you put this interview out there and, it inspired me not to give up," and this. And obviously it's not me, it's the people on here, the guests, I just ask the right questions. But at the same time, that's what kept me going because if it was just talking about sports, I would have got bored a long time ago of just of that. It's got to have that
Yeah.
deeper meaning for people, even though I love sports. And yeah, my reason for wanting to talk to you is I knew that some of these deeper aspects were there. And I just appreciate you sharing it because, like you said, if it touches even one person, then, we've done our work. And I believe it will touch more people than that. But still, that we've done our work. So, okay, so that's the military side. That's I'm gonna say the trauma. Yeah, speaking out. I mean, as men, obviously, it's the only thing I will say to our audience as men. It's hard to do, and it's worth doing. So worth doing. But I think, in the most respectful way, women do have that support network naturally, where they sort of talk about things. But with men, we tend to keep it all locked. Locked. I don't even know. I mean, I've been there as
We
well.
try to be,
Yeah, all locked in a box somewhere. And I totally, I'm with you on that. I am glad that you're getting it out. I mean, it's not a question. I'm just saying, from me to you, I'm glad that you're healing from all of this. Um, and obviously, we need to talk about the MMA as well because this is something that's a big part of your life as well, and it's something that you're getting more known for. I believe it's 12 fights in now across amateur and pro, the ones that I've seen and been aware of. So, where did that actually start? Because obviously, you had the wrestling and you had these things going back a little way, but let's start with the decision to get back into a competitive sport of this nature.
um, so so when I lived in California, which was my last duty station, I was around a lot of guys that are out that are um currently coaches or have their own promotions now. And they tried to get me to do it then, but I wasn't ready. Like, I was still dealing with a lot of things. When I moved back to Florida back in 2016, I kind of was like, you know what, I think I'm gonna start training. So I found a gym and kind of started training a little bit. Took my first kickboxing match in 2018. Yeah, 6 years ago. Um, and at that time, I was 30, 37, 38. So I was older. Um, I think that year I fought 5 times. They were all kickboxing. I wound up getting injured at the end of the year. I tore my bicep, and that I actually did that in the middle of a kickboxing match. I didn't realize it until afterwards. Um, so when that happened, I actually kind of went into like a state of depression. It sucked because I was afraid that I wasn't going to be able to just continue to compete. Um, but during that time, I was actually, I became friends with my wife now. She worked at a vitamin shop, supplement place, and she kind of helped me get back into the mode of doing things. So I moved gyms once I healed. Started into boxing with it's uh, it's called Technique. The coach over there, his name is JT, awesome guy. Um, I'd met him through a friend of mine, and so I spoke with him, took me in. I started, kind of learning everything all over again. I started boxing. I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna take this real serious. I was like, there was no point where I was like, oh, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna become a pro. It was just like, hey, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this until I can't do it anymore. Um, so July 2018, I had surgery. By August of 2019, I was going into my first amateur MMA match. Um, man, that first MMA match, I lost via rear naked choke within the first round, and I was just like, man. But I was like, you know what? That was fun. I enjoyed that. Let's do it again. So, did a couple more. Um, and my not necessarily my fan base, it was more like the people that started seeing me, supporting me. They realized how old I was, and they were like, man, like, people started asking me why I was doing it. And I explained to them, look, at that age, if I would have decided to retire from the military, I would have still been in the military at that point. And I would have still been running PT. I would have still been doing all the physical stuff that even the young guys do. So there was no reason for me to stop at that point. Um, from that first MMA match that I lost, because, well, let me backtrack. I didn't win any of my kickboxing matches. All of them always went to decisions. Never was knocked out. It was just they all went to decisions. All my guys are always 6 foot or taller. But me personally, I was just like, you know what? I'll take whatever. I will fight. I'm not afraid to jump in there. I want to do this. Um, and then when I got into the MMA side, I lost my first one, two, three, and then I went on a 3-win streak for a while. Actually, I lost my first MMA match back in November through a decision, and then I just recently fought last weekend, and I lost that one via rear naked choke. Um, Small mistake, something that I recognize, but I'm here. It happens. It doesn't mean I'm gonna stop, but overall that though, yeah, I kind of just, I picked up some great sponsors. One of my main ones right now, is Team Reaper, which is what I have one now, and then DD214, which is a veteran-owned company. And one of the reasons why I'm really like in in tune with him is because a lot of the things that we do is for the veteran community, veteran and military community. And so, since I've been doing this, I've met a lot of vets and a lot of people my age, and they're like, "Man, you're older, but you're still doing this." And people, that's why. And my why is I am an example of, I'm a living example of what being told you can't do something, but still doing it and able to do it without any reserves. You know, I jumped into the MMA side. I jumped into jiu-jitsu. I got my purple belt last year, which, most people quit after they get, after the blue belt. So I mean, just all these things are what have built me into this career. Like I said, I started that out and I didn't plan on going pro. I turned pro last February, and won that pro debut and won it in a very unanimous fashion. So it was, probably one of the best feelings in the world. Like, just not even, it wasn't about the money. It wasn't about anything other than my love for competing, my want to continue competing, and just being able to show that it, it doesn't matter how old I am, and it doesn't matter what disability I have. I can get in there and do it with even the youngest. So, and here I am now. Now I'm three pro fights into it. You know, unfortunately, almost even unfortunately, I'm learning lessons as I'm going. And my fight that I fought in November, I realized that I was kind of getting in my own way. I was overthinking things. I wasn't really pushing. This time, it wasn't that I overthought. I just rushed. So I'm still learning. I'll be 45 in August, and I'm just like, you know what? I never stop learning. And I love that fact. I love being able to learn. I love being able to perform and get out there and do the things that I learned. So, you know, that's that's my career in a nutshell right now.
It's amazing. I mean, obviously, the idea of being there for people, being an inspiration for people, and everything that speaks for itself. It's incredible. The fact that you represent these things as an athlete and as a human being, and also showing that age is just a number, really, which it is. I think it's actually a very important lesson because a lot of people have dreams and goals where they think, oh, I'm past it now, I'm over the hill, I'm this, I'm that, and all of that's just a construct of the mind. I mean, the thing is, I know people who are still competing in fight sports in their 50s. I know people who are still doing like long distance, but I mean like long distance running more than marathons, like 40, 50 miles, things like that in the 80s even. I mean, there's people out there who do crazy stuff, and it just shows you, what, that when people feel broken down, like with age or whatever, it's mostly up here, and I love that. I mean, I absolutely love that you show that. So, last couple of things, so we don't give people too much to take in, but last couple of things with this, obviously with the MMA and with competing. What are your future plans? What are your goals from here, and where can we expect to see you next? I don't mind how far ahead in time you'd like to go with this, but just that's up to you. But just what's lighting your fire, as they say, from this point forward, please.
Um, I honestly I haven't called it quits yet as far as the fighting part goes. A few more fights, and we'll see what happens. I definitely would like to fight again by August, which would be great. I'm actually about to ramp back up into my jiu-jitsu. I competed, man, I couldn't tell you how many times I competed over the past few years. Um, I was competing almost every couple of months in jiu-jitsu, all the way up until I got my blue belt. And so I'm gonna get back to that side of things because my ultimate goal is after I hang the gloves up, I'm gonna continue competing in jiu-jitsu. Um, and then from there, I'm just gonna go. I'm teaching a kids class. I'm teaching kids MMA right now. I do anti-bullying and MMA class every Monday night at the gym I'm at. Um, And just pretty much, just that's kind of the where I'm gonna go with it. Just kind of stick with it and keep going. As long as I can do it, I'm gonna do it. I'm sure there's a lot of people like, oh man, you're 45, you or 44, you need to, why are you still doing this? You need to quit doing that. You need to quit that. But you know what? My life. And I'm not gonna be the couch potato talking about I'm broken, and things like that. I guess if anything, it's my vice because I don't drink, I don't do drugs, I don't do any of those things. So guess it's a good vice to have that I want to stay healthy and stay active. You know, got the personal side. I actually have a granddaughter that's going to be born April 4th. So, it's kind of cool to be like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna be a grandfather and be still fighting. That, that's a little bit of motivation right there for me. Um, and both my son who's 25 and then my daughter who's 21, 20 or 22, they both enjoy it. My daughter's husband actually talks to all his friends. He's in the military as well. He's a Marine. And, it just, the happiness that people feel, the joy that they get from me doing what I do just makes me continue to want to do it.
Absolutely. That is amazing inspiration to the people around you. Congratulations, by the way, on the upcoming birth of your granddaughter as well. That's a wonderful,
Thank you.
wonderful blessing. Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, you're an inspiration to a lot of people, but you're an inspiration to those closest to you as well. Um, so, last couple of things, like I say, we'll wrap this up. You have obviously achieved a lot in your life so far, and you're continuing to do so. So I have a slightly abstract question for you that I think will have an interesting answer. How do you personally define success or the concept of success? Because you've overcome all of these challenges, and a lot of people think that success is sort of defined by like money or defined by certain things like that. And it's not really, in my opinion. I mean, obviously that's important, but there's a lot deeper things, that matter. And I was just curious what the concept of success means to you personally.
For me, success is being able to just get out and do the things that you love to do, that you want to do. Being able to enjoy life with no regrets and, being able to inspire those around you. I think that right there is more more valuable than money itself. Um, you know, I know in today's culture, a lot of things, social media, followers, and things like that. You know, I don't, I can't say that. Well, I don't gauge my life off of followers. I gauge my life off of people, those that I've touched, those that I've reached, people's smiles, little kids that walk up and say, like even I just lost this last fight, even after I lost the fight, there were still little kids walking up. Hey, can I get a picture with you? Can I get a picture with you? I'm nobody. I'm not in the UFC. I'm not, in Bellator. I'm not in any of these things. I'm just a regular guy. And I think that right there means a lot to me to have these kids come up and want to have their picture taken with a regular person that's doing something that they enjoy and that they look up to. So for me, success is definitely having those interactions and having, those feel good moments.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, it's something nice to close out with because, if people have listened to this far, then I think they have the dedication to pick up on that lesson and they'll actually use it. So I definitely, I love that. I mean, a regular guy, I mean, I understand that the humility, I respect that. Maybe you could say like a regular guy doing extraordinary challenges or extraordinary pursuits, maybe something along those lines. But it's been a wonderful talk, my friend. I really appreciate you sharing the things that you shared and being an open book basically with me. I actually appreciate that, and I really hope that people take some lessons from this about what separates the best from the rest, basically. In terms of getting to the level that you, the audience, wants to get to. I mean, it's different for different people. what form that takes. But you really shared that, and also I hope, champ, that this helps give you a little bit of a push as well, and maybe a few more people hear about your story and everything like that, and they'll join in with what you're doing and start following what you're doing as well. So I hope it helps with that side of things. I think it will, because I think there's a lot of people who will be fascinated to hear about this, and everything that you're doing and everything that you'll continue to be doing, and what you represent, more importantly, because the last thing I'm going to say, and it sounds sort of cheesy in a way, but you're like a light in the darkness of the world. I mean, you're out there and you're shining and you're showing people, you can pursue what you want to pursue. You can be the person you want to be, which is really what it's all about at the end of the day. And you can do these things, and whether that's inspiring your family or people close to you, people in your community. I love that you're teaching kids. By the way, keep doing that, please, because this generation now. I mean, I'm in my 20s. This generation now, they need help. Basically, I'm not going to get into that, but that's another topic. They need some help. Trust me. And so keep doing that, and just keep inspiring people. It's a beautiful thing, and it's one of the highest things we can aim for in life, I think. So absolutely amazing journey.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, and I am definitely an open book. That's why, like, a lot of people are like, oh, my Instagram, you got to do this, you got to do that. But my Instagram is 100% open. There's never been a person that has a request anything, and I've gotten people. I think you and I met through social media, so it's like I'm very open, and I think I've gotten numerous messages. I try to respond to everybody, and it's weird because like I get messages from people. I'm like I said, once again, I'm not anybody special. I am just here. And if they took the time out to actually look through my Instagram, then obviously that's why they're reaching out to me. So
Yeah, well, I mean, it's testament to what you're doing, because I heard about you like all the way across the world. I mean, obviously, I was living in the UK at that time. I'm in Cyprus now, but I heard about what you're doing, and I don't even know exactly where I first came across it, but I kept seeing these posts coming through, and I'm thinking, man, this guy's doing some really cool stuff, and I just looked into what you were doing a little bit, and it went from there. But that's testament. I mean, the social media is a tool, isn't it? I mean, some people use it for good things, some people use it for not so good things. But people say, "Oh, social media is this and that." It's not anything. It's how you use it, and you're using it to share your message, and what you represent. And I know you're doing this for your reasons personally, but the more people you can reach through that, the more people you have that impact upon, and it sort of goes from there, and then they have an impact on people from there, and the ripple effect, etc., and so forth. So it's a very powerful thing. Anyway, we've talked about some wonderful topics. You've got a whole day ahead of you, so enjoy it. I hope that everything goes well for you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Over here it's later. It's our afternoon now, but I know.
okay.
Yeah, it's 1 o'clock now. But for you, you've got the whole day. So I hope everything goes well, and my best wishes to your family, to your loved ones as well. When this is released, I'll send it to you, and you can see how it's come out. Only thing I'd say, if you could share it as well, your side, I'd be very grateful for that. Obviously, I'll do all the promotion of it my side, but it's always nice to have that reshare. And that's about it. I mean, I'll be following your fights from here. I'll be cheering for you, even from thousands of miles away. And yeah, just enjoy following your journey. To be honest, thank you,
All right. Hey, thank you, Leo.
thank you. Take care. Have a great day. Bye
All
now.
right, you too, bro.
Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the Simply Inspired YouTube channel, and there'll be more videos coming soon.